Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gents. This is Defub21, and oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Houston, or should I say Lucasfilm slash television, we have a problem. To put it in of itself, this episode is, not necessarily, it's not offensively bad, but it just illustrates what is now a very, very, very clear problem. A problem that I think was, maybe not recognized or put up with in the first season of The Mandalorian or the second, and was kind of mitigated by the fact that both those seasons ended very strongly. You had, of course, the discovery of Baby Yoda, aka Grogu, in season one, and then the final episode of that season, which has a very good ending, particularly with the Moff Gideon getting out of his shot down TIE fighter with the dark saber, which is all very cool. And then in season two, we had the probably the single greatest member berry episode or piece of Star Wars content ever, the arrival of Luke Skywalker to save the day. But in terms of outside of that, the seasons both season one and season two of The Mandalorian suffer from the same kind of core structural problem that season three is clearly suffering from, which is that Lucasfilm or not Lucasfilm, Disney Plus appears to be unwilling to spend the money, commit the financial resources to doing big budget appointment streaming television properly. It is unwilling to make episodes that are, typically as long as episodes of A House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones are and were. It is, or for that matter, make episodes as long as Star Trek Picard. It results in rather seriously truncated storytelling that frankly belongs to a bygone age. Think, the limitations of broadcast television in the 1990s, the 80s, even the 2000s. Although, again, even then, there were changes happening. You had The Sopranos on HBO, which again is premium cable, but still nonetheless, that kind of serialized storytelling is now the norm, particularly in the big budget streaming space. And they can't do it because they don't have the ability to do long form storytelling, because the episodes are individually too short and or too variable in length. And B, and equally importantly, the people making this show don't seem to know or understand how to make modern make and write modern serialized television programming. The again, spoiler warnings as always. This is a spoiler review. The key underlying problem you have here, it kind of personifies in this episode, is that rather than running story threads from the beginning of a season or over multiple seasons, they are instead doing an entire story thread that has major character development for a major character or a supporting character over one episode, maybe two episodes max. And it's, again, it comes across as jarring. The prime case here in this episode is the, as far as I'm aware, lone adult male survivor of House Vizsla, whose first name I forget, and I'm doing a stream of consciousness here, so I'm not going to stop the recording to go find his name. Who was from the cartoon show, or various cartoon shows, the Clone Wars and so on, a long-established adversary, or his family were long-established adversaries of Bo-Katan's clan Kreese. I think it was House Vizsla or Clan Vizsla, but either way, the character has gone from being, antagonistic towards the Mandalorian at best throughout, all of season one, all of season two, and even into this season, And then suddenly out of nowhere we get 2 episodes back to back, which I think is the main purpose of the last episode, which was only half an hour long, which basically has, again, as you refer to my previous review, has the Mandalorian and Bo-Katan along with another group of Mandalorians from the Culvert going off to rescue who turns out to be the son of this adult Mandalorian whose first name I forget, who's from Clan Vizsla. Is the big muscly, we assume muscly guy covered in the best looking armor, that really big machine gun, Gatling gun, laser cannon or blaster cannon. Again, first name I forget. The sole purpose, it seems, of that episode, and taking into account this one, was to save his son, so that in the following episode, it could explain the character's kind of heel turn, as it were, in his change in his behavior towards the Mandalorian and towards Bo-Katan. And it's better than doing it in a single episode, I suppose. Or certainly a single short episode, which is what the most Mandalorian episodes are by modern streaming television standards. They're short, very short. The last episode was 30 minutes long, including both credits and the from the previously on section at the beginning of the episode. This one is, I believe it's, I have it open here, 41 minutes long, including both trailer and credit sequence at the end and previously on sequence at the beginning. So this is, there again, the episodes are too short, but you have effectively a total of about running time of a little over an hour. A very radical change in the main character's relationship with and Bo-Katan's relationship with a character, another Mandalorian who's probably the most prominent one apart from Boba Fett we've seen so far from the Star Wars IP, who is hostile towards them. Again, a member of Clan Vizsla, who's been, again, antagonistic towards them from the beginning, and then suddenly in 2 episodes there, he's gone from being actively antagonistic to actively supporting the Mandalorians' request for their support in helping his friends back on the planet whose name I forget, that has led... yes, his name is Greef Karga, or Kargar, maybe that's how you pronounce it, and the planet is named Navarro. Again, I can't remember, I forgot those 2 pieces of information, but there you go, must be my advanced age. But either way, the way it's done, the way you have this member of Clan Vizsla, who, again, I should have checked for his name as well, as I was checking for Greef's and the name of the Navarro, the name of the planet. But the fact that this character kind of, over the course of 2 episodes, goes from being an antagonist to being a supporter / ally, because he supports Mando and Bo-Katan's request for assistance in freeing Navarro from the pirates who are taking over the planet. It's done in a very kind of, they took 2 episodes to do it, so it's better than doing it in one 40-minute episode from beginning to end. This change in the character's perception of and support or relationship with both Bo-Katan and Mando. But it just reeks of kind of, 1990s, kind of 2000s highly episodic television, where you're having a character who's, effectively changed its relationship with another character or the main protagonist of a show very, very rapidly overnight, and it just comes off as very kind of, it comes off as very kind of old-fashioned, obsolete storytelling, and it just doesn't work the way it should. The relationship, again, if you're talking about writing proper modern serialized television and serialized storytelling, the relationship should probably have changed over the course of multiple episodes, maybe an entire season or more. But the people who are writing the show either don't know what they're doing, or they do, but upper management keeps meddling and changing plans and changing the story, forcing the people who are writing it to have to constantly redo things almost on the fly. And that is a huge problem. And when you see this, like, again, it should be noted that I haven't watched all of the Marvel Plus shows. I haven't watched Moon Knight. I did watch, the most recent one I watched was what is it? Giant green lady when she's cross. She-Hulk. I watched She-Hulk, and that that is, in terms of serialized storytelling, it's She-Hulk is better than this, and that's, that is a bad thing considering how negative the reaction to She-Hulk was overall. And I thought it was a pretty mediocre to bad show, and considering the fact that I'm a big fan of the Netflix run of the kind of the Netflix run of Daredevil, I think it's one of the best pieces of kind of comic book IP ever created. I'm also a big fan of Jessica Jones as well. I am less than enthusiastic for what's coming from Disney in that regard as well. But the She-Hulk was, to my mind, bad. But again, they were better at telling a contiguous story that ran over an entire season than the people who are writing this show are. And it is, to my mind, a huge problem. They're in a very competitive space against competitors that can afford to spend 150 million, maybe even more at this stage, on a single 8 to 12 episode, or 8 to 12 episode season of television. I mean, I would imagine that's how much it costs to make House of the Dragon, as an example. Maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more, but either way, that kind of big budget appointment television is expensive to make, and Disney is now operating in that space. They had what was, until Disney got their hands on it, probably the single most esteemed, as what's her name again? Grace Randolph would say, 4-quadrant IP in the business, and they've spent the entire period they've had control of it systematically ruining it. And first with, again, I'm not a fan of Return of the Jedi, or sorry, not the Return of the Jedi, sorry, The Last Jedi. I didn't bother watching, my reaction to The Last Jedi was so bad, I didn't bother watching the third, Rise of Skywalker, the third of the new sequel trilogy. So I've never seen that movie. And Obi-Wan Kenobi was very badly made, irrespective of the writing, the storytelling. It was badly made. I thought Andor was a step in the right direction, but it was clearly a show intended to run over a much smaller number of larger episodes, or longer episodes, that got chopped up to lengthen the number of weeks it'd be on screen, to kind of keep eyes, as it were, on screens and keep subscriptions on Disney Plus in place, which hurt it. But I still think it's one of the best pieces of Star Wars IP we've seen in a while. It's a bit long in the beginning, specifically because they chop up the episodes and they're much shorter than they would have been otherwise. But apart from that, it's not, even though Andor was a step in the right direction, Boba Fett was a train wreck apart from the 2 episodes Mando was in. Obi-Wan Kenobi was badly written and badly directed. The action sequences badly shot and choreographed. I mean, the list goes on and on. But Disney's supposed to be this, is the biggest media company in the industry. It's still even bigger than Netflix, principally, I believe, because of the combination of revenue from both its theme parks and its cruise liners. Although I think the cruise liner business will be in the dogs for years because of COVID. But even still, I mean, it's like they're like, if each episode was like 45 minutes long, and then you had maybe 15 minutes of ads on broadcast television 20 years ago, considering the production values and the special effects, it would have killed, at least to a degree. But this is, it's too sanitized, like almost everything on Disney Plus. The episodes are too variable in length. The storytelling, because of the short episodes, is highly compressed. I mean, the big elephant in the room is episode 3, where we had this season, where we had this section at the beginning with Mando and Bo-Katan, and then the bulk of the episode is set on Coruscant, between the group of Imperials who are being rehabilitated, including the Imperial scientist who is an expert in cloning, whose name I also forget, who ends up being mind wiped, I assume, by the end of the episode, because we don't know what happened to him after that. That might be the last we see of him. But the what's the term? I mean, that storyline should have been written in piece by piece through multiple episodes this season, rather than having it just as one chunk of a story in one episode. It should have been, you should have been jumping between Mando and Bo-Katan and the two principal characters in this secondary storyline, again on Coruscant, from the very beginning of episode 1, probably up until the last episode. In other words, that section from the bulk of episode 3 should have been in episode 1. Part of it should have been episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, and episode 4. And it would just have been much more, they could have explored it more fully. They would have had more space and more time to do it, particularly if the episodes were a proper length of about 50 minutes plus for a modern streaming show. But instead, it all gets put in one chunk in the middle of one episode, which has basically got an action shooty sequence at the beginning and another kind of action shooty sequence at the end of that episode, with a main story around, again, those two Imperial characters. That's very good. Like, I liked it, but it is a bit on the slow side, and it could have been much better integrated into the season by just having it from part of it in episode 1, part of it in episode 2, part of it in episode 3, and then like the final part of it in episode 4. And then we'd be leading into this episode with the female Imperial character, who is clearly evil, or a baddie, being fully understood by the audience to be a baddie, and then they could have gone from there. But again, they haven't done that, and it's just like it's sloppy. It's they need to. I mean, are they? I don't even know if they're even writing like from the beginning. They're writing a season that, right, this is the beginning of the season, this is the end of the season, this is the story arcs we have, this is what's happening with these story arcs over the course of the season. And then they're writing, once they have that all in place, then they're writing each episode one after another after another after another. That's what they should be doing. They're not doing that, and or doing it in an incredibly ham-fisted way, and it shows. And it's not working at this point. It's kind of personal loyalty to the IP. It keeps me watching, and the fact that I'm doing reviews for my YouTube channel of it, to give you my opinion, because I can't not have you not give you my opinion. And it's just like it's just not. It's not good enough. It's nowhere near reaching its potential. This is one of the biggest media company in terms of cash turnover and profitability in Hollywood, and they're not willing to spend the money to have. You want to have an 8 to 12 episode long season? Fine, cool, great. Then spend the money to have each episode be 50 minutes plus long. Write the show each season and taking that into account. Spend the money to have the production quality in place. Again, in this episode, one of the things that comes across as cheap is that at the end of the episode, you have all these kind of happy quote unquote townsfolk who've been who can now go back to their city. But the problem is that they come off as townsfolk. There's literally maybe 100 extras, a little bit more than that, in this supposed city, one would imagine, with a population at the bare minimum in the thousands to tens of thousands. And again, it just comes across as, being penny-pinchingly cheap. Now, if it's too expensive to make the stuff in California, because apparently house prices in California are like $800,000 US now on average, fine, make it somewhere else in the US. Make it in Georgia. You see a lot of stuff made these days with, thank you very much to the Georgian Department of this, that, or the other, that supports the film and television industry operating in Georgia. There are things like that you can do, but they're not willing to. They're it's this weird kind of halfway house of they're willing to spend the money to a degree on the sets. Like the CGI looks excellent to fantastic in this. The sets, like the bridge and the parts that you see of the pirate spaceship, look great. The the sets in the town look very, very good, and so on, but they're not willing to spend the money to have the episodes be a proper length. They're not willing to hire an adequate number of extras. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. Well, it doesn't go on and on and on. There's only a few core issues, but those are very, very serious structural problems. And clearly, it's systemic to Disney Plus. I mean, again, in terms of serialized storytelling, I would say that She-Hulk is better than this show is, which is bad because She-Hulk is an overall badly written show that seems to have been designed to antagonize the fan base. Although we've certainly seen that in Star Wars recently under Disney's ownership. And in terms of everything else, it's just, frankly, they're not, as I keep saying, not only are they not going to rebuild the IP after the disaster that was the sequel trilogy, particularly The Last Jedi, they're actively damaging the IP even further by producing mediocre to bad content like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Boba Fett. And then the best stuff that they can produce, is still significantly flawed. I mean, this is not good enough. It's not good enough for Star Wars content in general, considering the standard set by George Lucas, both with the original trilogy and even the prequel trilogy. And that does have its issues. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Or that's me paraphrasing Anakin from Revenge of the Sith. But there's certainly some bits in that are in the prequel trilogy that are cringe, to put it mildly. But this is it's just not good enough. It just isn't. Another side gripe is the use of language. Not, again, unlike Star Trek Picard, where there's some swearing, shock horror, which I think is very much kind of out of context for the IP. But anyway, is the fact that there's a continued use of more modern language in this. Modern, not Star Wars language like they use dad or times in this season so far, when they should probably consider what would be tonally correct for Star Wars would be father. Things like that are also shouldn't be there, are there, and shouldn't have been, should have been fixed on set at the very latest, but haven't been. So it's all a bit of a mess, quite frankly. And so far, The Mandalorian's been able to get away with genuinely creating the first very high profile, or two very high profile, likable Star Wars characters since the original trilogy characters, which of course is Mando and Grogu, although I like Bo-Katan too. Although again, that character originates from the Clone Wars cartoon series. And they had the advantage of ending very strongly on season 1, and very strongly, certainly if you're like your member berries, in season 2. But this season, the same problem, the same structural problems. It's not going to. The ratings are down. How far they're down completely, we probably won't know for a while. Like the Nielsen ratings come in and so on. There's a bit of a delay of like a month plus on that apparently. But it's entering either stagnation or a death spiral, and this season of The Mandalorian is not going to fix it. It just isn't. It's not good enough. There are two main base flaws. The episodes, again, in summary, the episodes are too short. The resulting in truncated storytelling. There's, it's a bit too bland, because Disney Plus needs some sort of an age rating / age gating parental control system, so they can put more mature content on it. Like, again, to reiterate, you will say Star Wars has always been a kiddie show. In the original trilogy, Grand Moff Tarkin blows up Princess Leia's homeworld, Alderaan, killing everyone on the planet, including both her parents. In Return of the Jedi, we find out that one of the principal big bad who does the Emperor's bidding, Darth Vader, is Luke and Leia's father. Spoiler warning if you didn't know that. And, oh yeah, Luke's hand is also chopped off by his own father. And of course, Han Solo gets preserved in... it's not... Well, I was going to say Kryptonite, but that's DC, not Star Wars. He's put into suspended animation and transported off to Jabba the Hutt for Jabba the Hutt's entertainment. And this is it's a family program, or family movies were always, or ones that kids were intended to be able to see, were a more darker, more mature, less sanitized than they are today, and I consider that to be a good thing. Not that they're sanitized today, but that they were darker and more mature back in the 1980s. And things have gone a bit too soft, as far as I'm concerned. But this is it's too sanitized. The episodes are too short. The writers clearly don't know how to do serialized storytelling properly, and it shows. And it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough to hold people's attention when standards are being set by things like House of the Dragon. They're not going to be able to improve restore the Star Wars IP to its pre-Last Jedi or glory, or for that matter, significantly improve things vis-a-vis Marvel shows on Disney Plus, if they just keep up doing what they're doing. It's just not good enough at all. I've been rambling on now for a bit, so I'll have to bring this to an end. But please let me know what you think in the comments. If there's anything else you'd like me to review or react to, let me know in the comments. If you are not already subscribed, please do so, and ring the bell to get notifications when I upload new content. And please like the video. This is Defub21. Possibly looking at Star Wars Circling the Drain. Signing off. Toodaloo.